Business membership organizations, also known as BMOs, are defined as associations or groups of businesses coming together to promote their common interests. They may also be referred to simply as business associations or private sector organizations, depending on the country in which they operate. The sector in which BMOs operate is generally known as the chamber industry. Bakarai Matanga is a consultant with the Zimbabwe Business Enabling Environment Program, BEEP, which formerly ran under the Zimbisa banner and was directly involved in providing the private sector with assistance through BMOs.
The main challenge we sought to address was the weakness of business associations making an input into public-private dialogue. They lacked the technical rigor to make meaningful submissions when they interfaced with their main stakeholders, that is the government. Some of their submissions were rather emotive, not based on evidence, so it was very difficult sometimes to take the input seriously. And as a result, it meant that the private sector's issues were not taken on board when private sector policies were crafted. Well, since the Zimbabwean economy has been struggling of late, those companies that would ordinarily be members of business associations could not afford to pay their subscriptions. They were looking at the bottom line. So that invoice coming from the business association was the last thing they wanted to pay. But this has got some knock-on effects, which I'll explain. If businesses are not joining private sector organizations, it means that there's no broad representation of their voice. And when they don't join, it means the business association also suffers from low revenues. And what then happens is low resources for a business association means they don't have capacity to guarantee good quality services towards paying members. It means they can't also fund research independently of donors. It means they cannot guarantee a very high quality suite of services to a company that would pay to join that business association. So it's a vicious cycle. Poor economy means businesses are suffering. Those businesses that are suffering cannot pay to participate in a business association. And then in return, that business association cannot provide services which then attract new members and retain members. We carried out a study of the chamber industry in Zimbabwe. So we commissioned Probe Market Research to carry out a survey of past, current and future members of business associations. In a nutshell, what that research brought out was that there's a huge gap between the expectations of companies and businesses in Zimbabwe of the chamber industry and the actual delivery of the chamber industry itself. So there's a huge gap in what they expect for paying that subscription. So we thought that rather than the chamber industry looking at this as a negative, they should see it as an opportunity to meet unmet demand. Think about it this way. If certain services are in demand from a business association and it's not being delivered, that business association should see it as an opportunity to become relevant. So what we've been preaching to business associations is that those services that are of high priority to companies in Zimbabwe should be provided, and we are here to provide the technical backstopping for them to introduce those services. And one of the most important services is advocacy, professional advocacy. For some time it has not been done professionally due to various reasons, namely the lack of resources in this struggling economy. There are a number of things that we put together, innovations that we put together, and I'll highlight one in the area of advocacy. We came up with a 5-step agenda for advocacy, which we were helping pilot organizations to try out. And very quickly, the 5 steps involved consulting members. Many business associations were not going out to find out the key business environment issues of concern to their members. So there was a disjoint between what the membership felt and what the organization is actually pursuing. So consultation in itself is a skill, it's a practice. It should be part of the DNA of a business association. We help them to try that out. And we help them to carry out research using the findings of those consultations. So we would help a business association, help members to prioritize the key concern, and then that becomes a researchable question. So we help them to carry out studies, some of them done through surveys involving those very same members that they've consulted. So all of a sudden, some organizations that were not even carrying out research to back up the advocacy now had got studies and evidence to back up what they were previously presenting as emotional arguments. And then following on, we helped organizations to put together, to package the findings, the recommendations from the findings of the research professionally. It is quite a skill to be able to put together, say, a policy brief, which is, digestible to policymakers. So we helped a number of organizations to test out, the skills of taking research findings, and then you craft a position paper to be tabled, with policymakers. So they managed to do that. And then even after crafting these documents, it's also quite a skill to be able to host a professional dialogue using that evidence. Who do you consult? Who are my key stakeholders? How should I go about the dialogue? Inclusivity, all those values. We also helped our partners to be able to test out that. So we supported the hosting of major dialogues. And then even after the dialogue is carried out, following through on what you've submitted to government is also quite a skill, because a lot of business associations rest on their laurels. After making a submission, they think things are going to happen, but it doesn't happen that way. Business associations or the chamber industry has got a very important role in monitoring implementation of policies. So what if you've submitted, made a submission and the reform is made? Fostering implementation is also very important. So these are the 5 steps that we helped a number of our partners to carry out.
Among the BMO partners assisted by the project are organizations that had previously not regularly carried out consultations with members to understand their member challenges.
ZACA is an association of crafters that have come together to work together and have their challenges addressed, through working together as an association. The challenges that we had before being helped by BIP, the challenges we had was that they're quite a lot. The first one was that we didn't take our own work seriously. We were working as a hobby, but now IMC BIP came on board, and they have professionalized the way we work as an association, and they've also professionalized the way we work as individual crafters. So I'm grateful for that, because now we're working, whereas before we used to work as a pastime. Now we're taking our work seriously. Yes. We have got regular meetings, monthly meetings that we hold the first Monday of each month. We discuss with our members what we have to discuss, and then if the members have got the challenges of their own that they need addressed, we hear the challenges, and then together we discuss them.
The BMO partners who were assisted to identify priority advocacy issues with their members were then assisted to commission research on those issues. The project prepared a manual targeted at the local chamber industry, focusing on how they can improve their research capacity.
Basically, the CZI State of the Manufacturing Sector Survey is a leading analysis of the state of the manufacturing sector and the business environment that the manufacturing sector is operating in. So the purpose, really, I can distinguish it in 3 forms: to CZI itself, to the internal CZI members and CZI leadership. It is aimed at giving empirical evidence that will help in lobbying for changes in policies or improvement in policies, or areas that really needs us to lobby on behalf of our membership. Then we also have other stakeholders for government and international cooperating partners. I think it's just provide a scan of the business environment in Zimbabwe and areas of reform or intervention as necessary. Then for the other stakeholders, I can group them into academia and others. So it can form a basis of future research. It gives baseline information for future research and improvements, and also offer trends that can be used by academia in their research. In 2016, following the support that we received from Zimbisa, we managed to have a relook at our methodology. So when we looked at our methodology, we had to incorporate a new section. We incorporated a section on value chains and business linkages. This was again as a result of the work that we were doing as CZI. And when we incorporated the value chains and business linkages, we came out with a number of findings that we then used for the work that we did in 2016, the remainder of 2016 and 2017. Again, on the methodology, we also worked with a number of experts within CZI and outside CZI. We got comments from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, from the academia, and we improved the work of the survey. The other part that we also got, the assistance that we got from the BIP project, was also on field work, on data collection, and questionnaire development, questionnaire distribution and collection. So they assisted us in contracting a local research company known as Probe Research. Probe Research carried out the data collection and for us, but the analysis we then did it internally. And after the analysis, we validated the study. So again, they supported that process. So we validated the study using our internal stakeholders, which is the CZI National Council, which is the highest decision-making body within CZI. So we then validated the results before we released the findings to every other stakeholder. The major feedback I think that we got, besides our stakeholders noticing that we had improved the survey, they also highlighted the need to consider other factors. I think I'll just give you an example that one of the key statistics that we produce in the manufacturing sector survey is the capacity utilization. So on the capacity utilization, a number of stakeholders asked us if we were measuring the quality of the capacity utilization. For example, you come out with a percentage that capacity utilization in 2016 is 37.6%. So they then asked the quality of that capacity utilization. By quality of capacity utilization, it means a company could have old machinery but producing it 100%. Producing 100%, and then the quantity of that 100% could be 50 compared to a company that is operating at 50% and producing 1,000 units of output. So I think those are some of the areas that they wanted us to improve on, in particular with that statistic.
Some BMOs were assisted to learn the craft of preparing policy briefs with incisive and practical recommendations of reforms on their priority advocacy issues.
ZACA's main advocacy issue is the issue of land. We need land for ZACA village. We need a ZACA village in which, now this is something that I'm very passionate about. We need the village. The village will comprise of the whole lifestyle of an art and craft practitioner. It should encompass the retail space. It should encompass operating space in which the crafter is working from. And then it should also have a space those that want to be taught our kind of work. We have got children, we've got even adults that want to know how we go about our work. So we should have space for that. And we also need, within the village, we need to have services. We need the banks, we need the shops, we need the DHL, your Courier Connect, your Swift, so that when our crafts are ready, we can easily access their services for export. So far we have approached the local parliamentarians, the members of parliament. We engaged them on the 10th of October. We had a huge meeting with them at the Holiday Inn Hotel, and we managed to invite 29 of these members of parliament, and I think it was a great achievement. It was also facilitated by IMC BIP, and we have addressed our challenges to the members of parliament, and they were very happy that we managed to bring them together and to help us discuss the challenges that we have.
Our focus on the 2016 findings, the major outcome also that came from the value chain approach. The value chains were focusing on what they call the farm to fork. The farm to fork is we are looking at the entire chain. We are not focusing on the manufacturing, but we are also looking at the relationship between the manufacturers and the distributors, the manufacturers and the farmers and the providers of their inputs. So what we've seen now within the economy is all the other stakeholders are now taking into account the value chain approach. We have seen other funders, other donors coming in to support the value chain work. For example, there are numerous studies that are going on. We have the leather value chain that is being supported by the African Development Bank. We have the soya value chain, which again the BIP project, which is the formerly Zimbisa, has supported through CZI. We have a number of them. We have the maize value chain study. So these are some of the studies that we are now getting into in-depth as a result of the findings from the manufacturing sector survey. Then there is also another issue on retooling. In terms of retooling, we have been working with the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair, but again it was based on the findings from the survey that the machinery from our companies is probably 20 or more years. Most of the companies that we sampled had machinery which is older than 20 years. So we are working with ZITF on a drive to help companies retool, and we have brought in original equipment manufacturers from South Africa, from India. We are also looking at where our companies source their equipment in order to help them retool. So it's not only the government intervention, but it's also intervention at private sector level that is important, and we see our survey really pointing on the areas that needs attention, and these are receiving quite a good reception.
After using the research to host high-level dialogues, most BMO partners seem to be making headway on their priority advocacy issues in their follow-ups with policymakers.
Most of the members of parliament were very keen on helping us, address some of our challenges. For instance, we had a member of parliament who said, listen, come into my constituency in Mashonaland East, I can avail some land, some space for you that you're talking about. So yeah, that's a breakthrough on our part.
The interventions which the program helps BMOs to pilot will no doubt be replicated long after the program closes down. This is because the market systems approach is anchored on the creation of a well-functional system, in this regard the system for public-private dialogue, using the incentives of various actors to collaborate as the fuel. In this regard, the program helps the private sector, the public sector, research organizations and the media to work together on issues of common interest to create a well-oiled dialogue ecosystem. This was achieved when BIP team members worked together on the same activities, as well as encouraging partners across diverse sectors to dialogue on key business environment issues.